Back at it again, and I've got 4 different pollsters in today's video that I want you guys to see, because these guys are saying something that I think is major news. They're giving a warning to Kamala Harris and Democrats, and some of them are saying something similar to what I've said previously, and we'll get into that. And at the end, I'll give you guys my prediction on what I think the outcome of the Electoral College will be, so stick around until the end and you'll see that. But before we hop into that, I do want to address something really quickly, because I know there's going to be that one comment, and I know I get thousands of comments on every single video. I mean, thousands upon thousands of comments, and it's literally like 1 or 2 out of thousands. So, I mean, we're talking about less than 1%, like a tenth of 1%, probably less than a tenth of 1%. But to the individual that's going to comment, well, Democrats are just going to rig it. Well, they're just going to cheat. My question to that individual is, and what are you going to do about it? Like, how long are people going to say, and like I said, it's not many of you, it's literally like 1 or 2 comments out of thousands, but how long are people going to say, well, Democrats are going to rig it? Well, if you know they are, then what are you going to do to stop them? Are you just going to sit on the internet and cry and complain? Or are you actually going to go work at a polling location, right? I remember showing you guys a video of a black gentleman who happened to be a Democrat who signed up as a Republican to work at a polling location. Yeah, I played that video for you guys. This is probably 2 years ago now. It's been a while. But yeah, now I think he just wanted money, so I don't think there was anything, crazy going on with that situation. But if he can do it, you don't think other Democrats are doing the same thing? So my question to that individual is, what are you doing? Are you connecting with a guy like Scott Pressler and going to register folks? Are you going door to door? Like, what are you doing to ensure that it doesn't happen? Like, it's not enough to just sit on the internet and cry and complain. All right, it's time to have some action behind those words. Now, let's get into this first video clip from this pollster and listen to what he has to say. Let's dive in.
Look at it, Trump's vote is firm. Is Kamala Harris's vote firm? Well, most of the people voting for Harris were not voting for her 36 days ago.
Right.
So consequently, that vote is not as hard and fast as it might seem. And we also think in terms of what's called an informed electorate and an uninformed electorate. An informed electorate doesn't move much. An uninformed electorate really can move. So quick, if you can find Kamala Harris's policies on her website, let me know.
Trick question. You can go to Kamala Harris. You'll search for an awfully, KamalaHarris.com. You'll search for an awfully long time. But you make this point, right, that Donald Trump has a very high floor. He can shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose support.
So you heard it there, right? Donald Trump's support is set in stone. Now, I don't think he could just walk out in the street and just shoot somebody. That's a joke. But his support is set in stone, right? For the most part. There's only a small segment of Trump supporters that could be swayed. But there's a large segment of Kamala supporters that still can be swayed, okay? And I think that is part and due to her lack of public engagements, right? That are off the cuff. Town halls, where she sits in front of the people, which I would be willing to make a bet that she would never do a town hall. Why? Because she can't speak very well. She talks in circles and laughs and chuckles about everything. So I think that's part of the reason why they're hiding her. And if she does do something like that, it'll be like right before the election. After a lot of the early voting has already happened, it'll be right before the election when it's already basically not set in stone, right? But they would feel a lot more secure in having the early vote, which typically leans Democrat, right? Which, hey, if that's what you can do to make sure your voice is heard, go and participate early, right? Do it in all ways, shapes, and fashions. However you can make your voice heard, you make it heard, okay? If that means you got to vote early, then vote early. Trump said the exact same thing, and I 1000% agree. We can't just show up on election day. It's too easy. We saw what happened in Arizona, and it wasn't there a place in Georgia where like the pipes burst like on the day of, That's too easy, you know? So yeah, if you have to do it early, do it early. Don't be afraid to do that. But let me also show you what Frank Luntz had to say as well. Check it out.
Frank Luntz is one of the most highly respected pollsters on the planet and joins us now. He has been digging into this numbers. Boy, Frank, there is so much to do here. I think we start with what's on the screen right now, which is the RFK endorsement of Donald Trump. At one point, the RFK vote was, 10, 15 points? Now it's down to 4. Yeah. Is this going to really make a difference?
It will, and it won't. It's probably worth about 1% for Trump, and that 1% could be everything if it's in all the swing states. In the end, the reason why Kennedy was drawing 10, 12, even as high as 14% is because he was taking votes away from Joe Biden. Joe Biden's gone. Kamala Harris has replaced him, and his vote collapsed down to about 4 or 5%. And what's left is a Trump vote. Some of them are simply not going to participate in November. Roughly 2 to 1, the ones who are remaining will vote for Trump over Harris, and that's worth a single percent, and a single percent can make the difference in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
All right, and they're in Arizona today. Look, Robert F. Kennedy went scorched earth on the Democratic Party today, right? They're bought and paid for, the corporate media. He was censored, on and on and on. If RFK had endorsed Harris rather than Trump, would the coverage and the conversation be a lot different about it?
That's a really good question. Good for you. That's a really good question. I think it would have been. I think, quite frankly, that most of the people who report the news, even though they're supposed to be objective, and even though they try to be objective, that there is a bias. And it's a bias that they hold inside, and sometimes it's reflected in what we see, what we hear, and probably most importantly, what we read. And the key here is whether or not you can have faith, trust, and confidence in what you're being told. If he had endorsed Harris, I do think he would have been regarded as a hero. But because he endorsed Trump, the people who are communicating that are not giving him the credit that he deserves. And I think that we have to be careful in the last 73 days of this election campaign to understand the motivations of the people who are providing us information like what I'm doing right now, because I am dedicated to getting this election correct.
So he said a couple of interesting things, but one of the things that I really took note of is when he was talking about the RFK support and it definitely making a difference in this upcoming election. Now, when I was speaking about this the other day, I said don't expect a major shift for Trump in the polling, right, in the numbers. Expect, and you guys can go back to the video and check it, I said a 1 to 2% swing. 1 to 2%. And what did you just hear him say? A 1% swing. You know, so I think I was right on when I was thinking that, because obviously, yeah, you're going to have some folks who just are just going to set it out flat out. But then you're also going to have some folks who, unfortunately, will go and vote for Kamala instead. But a majority of the individuals will fall in line behind RFK and Trump and support the much better candidate in Trump because of RFK being on Trump's team. So I think that 1%, 1 to 2%, I think it'll end up being like 1.6 if you want me to put out a specific number. Don't ask me why I came up with that number. It's just a number that, I don't know, it just feels right? That's what I went off when I said 1 or 2%. Nah, I was pretty spot on. So that could very well make the difference in this upcoming election, and I think it will. And like I said, I'll show you my electoral college prediction here at the end. But one thing that I think is going on right now, and I've talked about this previously, is pollsters are lying about what the polls actually are. And I talked about this previously when we were talking about Rasmussen and how their numbers were completely different than everyone else's. And I had to start asking myself, well, why are their numbers completely different? Is it because they are Republican friendly? Like what is going on here? So I had to go and look back at some of their previous polling. And in 2016, he was spot on. Everybody else, remember, Hillary Clinton, I believe the night before the election, was up by 7 points. Rasmussen had Hillary Clinton up by 2. She ended up winning the popular vote by 2. So for me, like when I see something like that, when I see, oh, they were spot on when everybody was off. But not only that, but also in 2020. Okay. I take note of that. And so I want to show you guys this video clip and what they have to say. Listen closely to what they say, because I think it's very, very important, because what is happening is I think there is some collusion going on, some colluding going on to demoralize Republican voters. Check it out.
Let me click on this. Oh, no, they do have one. It's Harris plus 8. There's no way. There's no way. It's Harris plus 8.
Fox News.
They have it as plus 6. And then the Survey USA poll. Oh, my God.
Just how I'm familiar with Fox News and how they poll versus us. And I would call that a Harris plus 4 race right now, then, most likely. Yeah. Here's the problem, though. If you go back and look at the dates, that was literally the week of her coronation.
Yep. And you know what's pretty funny? I think it's kind of funny that the second Biden dropped out of the race, they stopped polling all these deep blue states. Before, you had New York polls every week. You had New Jersey polls, leaks coming out. You had New Mexico data showing it within like 2 or 1 point. Minnesota was being polled all the time. And all of a sudden, now that Harris is the nominee, they just stopped polling all these states. I think that's a little concerning. I feel like they honestly should have kept polling those states. If Biden was doing that bad in those states, I think they should have kept polling those consistently. And we don't even have that as much. Well, I think right now we have more state polling data, but we have less national data, which is kind of interesting. And I think that
this is one of the ways the industry is carrying water for Democrats. And I called this out. And again, I'm from outside the industry. I've been here 3 years. I was trained by our predecessor, but I'm continuously surprised. And let me tell you, the more scientific somebody explains polling, the more I think personally they're trying to lie to you through obfuscation. This is an art for sure, not a science. And if you understand basic statistics and you have integrity, that's the key point. If you have integrity, it's not a hard job, but it's also a very hard job, because polling is very hard to do, right? Right. For me, it's easy to have integrity, but I'm constantly surprised by these hijinks. And I text Rich, and he's like, oh, yeah, they do this all the time. If you look at just the number of polls on Real Clear Politics, and I will admit, and listen, I love these guys. They are honest and trying to do the best they can in an industry full of crooked players. They have standards, and if the poll passes their standards, they put it up, like, period, end of story.
Right.
And I went back and counted by week, all the way back to the beginning of May, how many national polls were put out between Trump and Biden and then Trump and Harris. And for June and July, the average was like 8 to 15, depending on the week, national polls. For the first 2 weeks of August, there were like 3.
Right.
And it's like we just had a candidate switcheroo. One of the biggest things that's happened in politics in like decades, if not, 100 years. And all of a sudden, everybody's just like whistling and turning the other way. Yeah, and so that's just one way that they've been putting thumb on the scales. And look at this. We've just saw 2 blue states where everybody polled the week that she became the candidate, and then they just disappeared.
Yep.
They're gone. And I think there's a lot of it. We got the results we wanted, and so there's no reason to be any curious. And I'll tell you, listen, I would love to go poll those states.
See what I'm talking about? See what I mean? And you saw it in the dates. Those are very old polls. Why aren't they polling more consistently? Ask yourself that question. Because they were previously. Like you heard him say, we were getting polls out of New York, which I remember that. Okay. And some of you probably remember me talking about some New York polls where Trump was within single digits. Okay. When's the last time you heard of a New York poll? We were getting those pretty consistently. At least one every week and a half to 2 weeks was coming out. We haven't gotten one, at least not that I've heard of, since. Now, why is that? I think you heard him say it there at the end. They got the results they wanted. And so now, Kamala's winning. Kamala's winning. She got it. Now, am I saying that we need to sit back and relax? Absolutely not. Please do not mistake my words and what this video was all about. Do not sit back and relax because once again, and I've said this before, what you see in those polls will become reality. It will if we sit back and relax. Make no mistake about it. Democrats are, I just saw something about Oprah Winfrey just donated like $100 million to Kamala. I don't know how true that is. I didn't like dive into it. So full disclosure, I just was scrolling through and saw it and, oh, okay. Interesting. She didn't have any money for Maui, but she's got $100 million for Kamala. Interesting how that works. But anyway, if it's true. So make no mistake, they are dumping money into Kamala's campaign. So they are going to be throwing dollars every which way to try to get this thing won. So there's going to be a flood of ads, which I've already seen, a flood of Kamala ads and everything else. And so in these swing states, that could mean a lot. So if we take our foot off of the pedal, some of those fake polls, those old polls, will become reality. Now, I do want to show you guys this, okay? Because this is what my prediction of the election will be. So as you can see here on your screen, we have 287 to 251. Trump takes Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada. I do think there is a strong possibility that this happens. There's an outside chance that that happens. Now, if I'm a betting man, I'm going to bet that this is here, this is here. You know, if I'm going to take a risk, if I want a safe bet, then I'm just going to go with this. I think this is the safest bet possible right there. Which obviously is still, you know, a Trump win, which that's what matters. Okay. Trump W. So best case scenario, like I said, we go here, and I think outside chance, we may see that happen as well. I think that is absolute best case scenario for Trump. Right there. 325 to 213. So yeah. You know, some polling, at least even Trafalgar, has Trump up in Pennsylvania as well. So, which I don't trust Trafalgar as much as I trust Rasmussen, but I somewhat trust Trafalgar. But even their polls are somewhat old, so you know, a little shaky. But yeah, I think Pennsylvania will go to Trump barely, and possibly Wisconsin. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts, your opinions. I think Democrats are doing their best to kind of hide Kamala, keep her out of the sunlight, right? Keep her out of the limelight. If she does go out in the limelight, it's scripted. Like the interview she's going to do with, I believe, CNN, where it's a sit down, it's pre-recorded, so it's not live, and she's sitting down with Tim Walz. Come on, really? Like, you can't even sit down by yourself? How are you going to run an entire country and you can't even sit down by yourself? Like, why can't you do a town hall where you're asked off-the-cuff questions from random folks? Where you don't have a script to read off of, which that was one of her demands, to have note cards at this upcoming debate, and to have the mics on, which I think she wanted one of those moments where she was at her rally and she said, well, excuse me, I'm speaking. You know, I think she wanted one of those moments, which she isn't going to get because the mics are muted, which they wanted originally when it was Trump v. Biden, but then they wanted to change the rules last minute. Kind of weird how that works. But yeah, you guys can let me know your thoughts, your opinions on all of this in the comment section. How do you feel? Are you feeling motivated? Are you feeling discouraged? Why? Why not? I'm feeling very encouraged. And that's the main reason why I wanted to show you guys this video, because I think a lot of what you're seeing is meant to discourage you. It's meant to demoralize you. It's meant to make you feel as if Trump can't win when in fact he's already winning. And so, once again, I want to add on top of that, do not take your foot off the pedal. Get in contact with a guy like Scott Pressler. Get in contact with TPUSA and Charlie Kirk to get involved. Sign up to work at a polling location. Go door to door, talk to folks, have tough conversations with your friends, your family. Like this video, share it, leave a comment. All right. Even that helps, right? So let's win this thing. Let's bring it home. Y'all stay safe out there. Peace and love. I'm out.